Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mah, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mah here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Silvia Mah, and I am coming to you from San Diego, California. It is sunny here, so it's wonderful to be here with you. And I'm actually originally from Caracas, Venezuela, so it's not completely from San Diego, and so very excited to be here. I'm 50 years old. I say about because I am going to be turning 50 in about a month, so it is half a century of awesomeness and a journey that I would love to share with you. So my story is that, as I said, I came from Caracas, Venezuela. I was born there from immigrants. So my dad was an immigrant from Italy. He was part of World War II. He would have been right now 96 years old. And so he lived throughout World War II. He was actually an orphan in the northern part of Italy. Then he was put into a concentration camp in Germany because he knew a trade. So that's going to be a theme throughout the whole thing. So his education saved him from being part of a firing squad, took him off the firing squad and put up into this more of a work camp. And he worked as a publisher, a printing person. He helped with the printing presses in Nazi Germany. So kind of very interesting. And then he went back to Italy and there was nothing there after World War II. And then he went to Venezuela and started his entrepreneurial journey as a publisher and a printer of books and on art and architecture. My mother is an immigrant from the United States to Venezuela, and how she got there was that she was part of the CIA in the United States, and she went there to do, she was an analyst, so she studied at Stanford University. She came from a really small town in Colorado, which was up in the mountains, and she dreamed of a life of knowing more, of traveling the world. So that's what she did when she went to get her degree at Stanford in history. She was able to have that dream come true and be able to travel to England first, right after World War II. And then she immigrated to Venezuela and met a dashing Italian man in Venezuela, and then started a family. And we are a family of four, so I'm the youngest of four, and loved my my childhood in Caracas. We were part of the expat community, the Italian community, the American community, went to an American school. Definitely I'm very Venezuelan. I love arepas and hallacas and all the good things. And then I came here to the United States for college, because at the time that I was considering college, we had a strike going on in Venezuela. And I said, you know what, I'm never going to maybe join the university because of the strike. So I better go to the United States and study here. So that's how I ended up at Pepperdine University, and I studied biology. And I really wanted to master that piece of my education of being a biologist. I was actually a mammologist for about 3 years, getting a research degree from the university. And I actually did tours in Guyana, going back to South America, to Venezuela, and to the deserts of of the United States, which is mostly in Arizona. And I caught and trapped rats and bats. I know it's kind of crazy what I'm doing now, but this biology, this education allowed me to go in and get my PhD right after my undergrad in biochemistry. And I really went into deep research for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, that research was at University of California, San Diego. And after that, I got a job at the engineering department at UC San Diego, University of California, San Diego. And you would think like biology, PhD, engineering, what's going on? Well, as we know as women, we sometimes have to make decisions that are integrated between work and life. So I had 2 children at the time. Yes, I did have children in PhD. That's a whole other ball of wax that we can go into later. But basically, as soon as my PhD was over with, I had to make the decision of staying in San Diego because my second son had special needs. He was constantly in the hospital with cerebral palsy, and he's autistic. So it was about 4 or 5 days a week that we had therapy, and I had to stay in San Diego for this treatment for my son. He was medically fragile and I had to stay here, and I had to make the decision of not going down the faculty route, but really just staying in San Diego and doing what I could. That landed me into a program that was a teams and engineering service program. And I was a director there. And at the time I said, I'm going down a path that might not be the greatest for my career, but it's all for my son. But in hindsight now, about almost 15 years later, I'm like, that leap of faith that I did, that was more towards my children, was the greatest thing for my career. I went into social innovation in general, innovation of technologies, innovation of solutions in the world. These engineering students at the university were coming to me as a program saying, we want to fix something, we want to do something. I'm like, let's do it. Let's build it, and then let's see if we can sell it, right? Or commercialize it, become a company or something. So I was able to really, for about 7 to 8 years, I was able to really delve into undergraduate research, undergraduates creating the crazy ideas that were amazing, but graduate students and faculty, and really trying to commercialize these really heavy technologies out into the workplace. So it could be a license, it could be a starting of a company. And that was just like what I was grinding all the time, right? Because I had now 3 children, and I was the only breadwinner of my family. So I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I get this done. I get this career off the ground, and making sure that my kids are satisfied and wonderful with a mom. And of course, my husband was there. He was an at-home dad off and on throughout all those years, trying to support the dream of being a scientist, engineer, commercialization expert, and all that. But after I finished that engineering piece, I said, you know what? I don't have the business acumen that I'm really needing to be able to help the constituents that I'm helping, right? And what I also saw was that there was not a lot of me's in the world that I was helping, and not a lot of women that I was helping. There were 1 or 2 in a slew of 4 or 5, 40 or 50 male counterparts. I said, okay, there's something that's not going on right. I started my own women's organization and my PhD program in engineering. I was always giving back to American women in science, trying to see how do we get more women involved in whatever I was getting involved in. So those 2 themes of women empowerment and also of technology innovation, how do we do this better? And I wanted to see what can I do? And at the time I had my 3rd child, and I was able to go back and get my MBA. My mother, who's my awesome supporter, she was like, you know what, I'll pay for your MBA, and you can also take care of the kids and kind of chill for 2 years by getting this education. So again, that education theme of my parents is loud and clear. She's like, I'll do this for you for 2 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a blessing. So women supporting women, even if it's moms and daughters, or daughters and daughters, or aunties and nieces, it's so important to support each other. So she supported me at a time that I really needed that. And at that time, I started 3 companies with a couple of team members. One was in an EEG type of cap that we were trying to create, and one that was a heart monitor. So really exciting technologies that we're trying to put out there. Every single pitch, I was usually the only woman in the team pitching to a sea of men. I said, this is going to change. This has to change somehow. But I was still just trying to get my feet wet in this startup world. And at the end of my MBA, actually, my father passed away. And he, as I said at the beginning, he was an entrepreneur. And we did not know the amount of money that he amassed. And I became an angel investor overnight with inheritance that I received. But I had the acumen of knowing how to start up companies, how to create them, how to make the technology have a competitive advantage. I was so excited about this, and I knew that I was going to work until the day I die, right? Because I'm a workaholic, but I can make a difference with the inheritance that I received. So I said, I'll be an angel investor. I'll start my first check, and I will only invest in women and people of color. Because I didn't see myself as a Latina. I didn't see myself as a woman in the rooms that I was pitching to. And the checks that were being written were not being written to my type of person. I said, this has to change. And the data also is out there. At that time, it was about 12 years ago, 2010, we're about at 7% of all angel investment checks were being written by women. So 7% of angel investors were women. I said, we need to change this. And I'm the 7%, and it has to be more. We have to get more people around us. And at that time, too, it was even less than 1% of VC dollars were being given to women. And also the VCs that were writing checks that are the decision makers, about 1% or even less were women. So, and lo and behold, on the angel side, too, it's about 7% at that time. Angel entrepreneurs were getting funded at about 7% who were women. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of checks being written by women and the amount of money being allocated to women in the angel round and the VC round. So I said, you know what, there's as a data analyst myself and as a scientist and lover of data, I'm like, there needs to be something we need to change. So I did it. I started writing checks. And now about 12 years later, I have 140 companies in my portfolio, only women, only BIPOC founders. I've invested in 12 emerging fund managers. Emerging fund managers are the ones that are not represented out there. And I have 7 mergers and acquisitions and 1 IPO. So really amazing work by amazing entrepreneurs that I was so honored and blessed to be able to be their investors. So that is one story of that, of being able to say, so many years later that is a success. But throughout the time, how did I actually get that done? So you heard a little bit about my story about like this commercialization kind of queen that I was, not that I was a queen, but basically working in one university trying to figure this out. And then I started an accelerator called Stella. So Stella Labs. So we're like little labs, making sure that we understand how to commercialize something, how to market something, how do you build a website, very small individual labs that allowed entrepreneurs to dive in, women entrepreneurs to dive in and see like, what do I need to do for my company? That became an accelerator, Stella Labs, and became a not-for-profit, Stella Foundation. And as I said about that data, that it's that direct correlation between how many angels are out there to how many entrepreneurs receiving funding. We also started an angel group for female angel investors to invest in women entrepreneurs, and that's Stella Angels. So this whole Stella Foundation is a whole constellation of support for entrepreneurs who want to go from launch to exit, and the founders and the funders that want to invest in them. So that's what that basis of that constellation support of Stella Foundation. And we built it piecemeal, right? We built it as we heard other stories, as we heard entrepreneurs, what they needed, where they needed the support. We were only in San Diego for a very long time. And then we heard resoundingly across the United States that it needed to be all over the United States. So we said, you know what, during COVID, because we had to be virtual, we went nationwide pretty heavily during COVID. And that, how COVID is sometimes it's obviously a negative, right, for so many people and so across the world. It was a huge opportunity for us to be face-to-face and in the living rooms and offices and bedrooms and all of the places that you had a computer screen. We were there for the entrepreneurs to launch and scale their businesses. And then the investors who were like, where are deals now? There's nowhere to be found. We found those deals for them. So it's meeting the customer, our stakeholders at Stella, wherever they are, and making sure that we support them. So that is, that story of somebody like myself who had a mission, a vision of not like it happened to me, but not to anybody else. I needed to support and hold dear this community that I didn't want them to feel the same way I did. I wanted to make this world a better place for women entrepreneurs and women funders out there, investors, so that they really can find the right investment for their thesis, the right investment to make an impact, to grow wealth together. All those things take a community, and it takes one woman at a time. So as I said, like my mother helped me with my MBA, women supporting women. That takes one woman at a time. You pull up that next woman that is beside you, underneath you, above you, wherever that is, and you build a jungle gym of support, right? To be able to be not a ladder anymore, ladies. It's about a jungle gym of support. So that's kind of how I've built my entire career, my entire life. There are other pieces of my story of creating a micro VC fund at Astra Ventures that allows for women to really get funding as well from three amazing investors, myself, Alison Longpatine, and Vidya Dinamani. She's actually from New Zealand. So I'm really neat to see this global aspect of it. Been involved in other funds, Next Wave Impact Fund, that's more globally with all impact investors. We have 88 women who were LPs, limited partners, in a fund which about 5 years ago we started. It's now kind of created multiple funds from there because, again, that jungle gym of support allowed us to really be there for the investors and the entrepreneurs that we were serving. So this is a really great career that I've been able to be blessed with, to have these women who wanted to grow their companies, and we're here to support them in any way that we can.
Wow, what an inspiring story.
Thank you.
When I started to do my research around your life, the work that you're doing in this space, it just fascinated me to see that everything you had done had led you to the point where you are now. Mm-hmm. Your working career, the engineering, it's just amazing.
Thank you.
If I can take you back to when you were starting, to that younger woman who had a vision and a mission, wasn't too sure what to do and how to go about it. If we could have a thought experiment and I could take you back and go and have a conversation with her, based on what life has taught you up to this point, just in case there's another young person who's listening to this podcast, what 3 nuggets of wisdom could you share?
That is one thing I've always thought about, Gertrude. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because a lot of people see me now as this person who's built this huge network. I had no network coming to the United States in 1991. Nothing, zero. There was not even LinkedIn at that time. So you couldn't build a network on LinkedIn. But I was unaware that I even had to do that. I was very naive. I was not confident in myself at all. And so I think that just kind of owning that piece of who I was at that time, if I would have told her, be more confident, you're going to be okay, I would have dismissed that person talking to me, right? Because I'm nothing. I'm here as an immigrant. I don't know anybody. How can I even make an impact? But I think that I would have told her there's some spark in you that you cannot ignore, right? So I think that that's something that I've seen when I go back. I started a recycling club on campus at Pepperdine, and I thought it was a silly thing, right? I was like, you know what? There's no recycling bins on campus. This is an atrocity. I need to make a difference. And I thought it was silly that I just put out recycling bins. I just bought it from the grocery store, any bin, and I painted recycling on it, and I would just put them across campus. And every Friday I would pick them up and go to the recycling center. And I thought, why doesn't anybody else do this? Well, who else would care? Right. And I did. Right. At the time, I didn't think that. I was just this just has to be done. And in retrospect, I would have been there's a spark here that you have inside of you that don't ignore. Right. Because that spark allowed me to, throughout my career, see I need to fix this. Why isn't anybody else fixing it? I have to do it. Or I have to get another woman or another man or another person who cares as much as I do to really bond together on this spark. So that's the first thing. I think you asked me two other things, 3 things that I would say that person. So that's the one thing. There's a spark in you that don't ignore it. Number 2 is that you're more powerful than you think you are. Right. So even I am a director of innovation at WWII University, which is the university in Orange County. And I work with a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And I see that they have so much potential, so much power in who they are. Sometimes they're very humble of saying, you know what, I want to make a difference in this world. It's a Christian university. So through their faith, they can make a huge impact. Yes, you can, right? And that impact is going to be uniquely you, but you have more power than you think you do to be able to make a difference in who you are yourself and the people surrounding you. And then number 3 is, and this is, I would have loved to tell myself this, so I'm going to do more personal this time. But the third one is that I thought, like I told you in my story, that after I finished my PhD, I'm like, I have to make the decision of being a mom or being a career person, and I have to just take this job that is a decrease in my mind at that time to where I wanted to be. And I had to make that decision because I'm a holistic person, right? I care about my family. Family always comes first. And my career will also be important because I have to put food on the table, right? And I always thought about it as this like random like piece of, I don't know where I'm going, but I have to take it because I have to make this decision because of my family. But as you said, it's like there's nuggets along the way that allowed me to be this investor now, that I don't shy away from science. I can do an amazing due diligence report for any investor in the deep science all the way to CPG, which is consumer product goods. I can really understand all the technology. I can't like dive into something that's super, super technical, but I can understand it because I had my PhD first. Then I went to get this job that was in social innovation. I'm like, okay, I'll just take it because that's kind of what I was given. And I'm like, sure, I'll take it because that allowed me to be with my kids and all that. But wow, like that was a huge piece to understand impact investing, which was now something that I can really dive into as an investor and a venture capitalist. So I didn't see it back then, but I think that at the time I would have told myself, this journey is not random. Take what you're learning and making sure that you can carve out your own story that is positive, that is something that you're learning all the way. Learning is not bad. Learning is so awesome. So I think that that's something I would have loved to have told myself. And I don't know if I would have listened, right? I'm a little bit of a rebel. So I don't know if I've listened to myself, but there's something about that I would have loved to capture some great learnings along the way that I have probably missed.
Oh, I absolutely love this. Now, let's go to getting into the mind of investors and what founders needs to know to satisfy what investors are actually looking for. I know that you have put out a book.
Yes.
That really empowers people. Tell us about the book so that our listeners, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm starting my first tech startup, so I'm really curious to learn more about how I can communicate the vision of what I'm trying to create better and prepare to get in front of investors. Take us through that process.
Thank you so much. That's a great kind of insight into what it means to be. I love that you said, well, how do you get yourself into the feet of that investor and the mindset of that investor? The book is The Startup Investor Mindset. And is a book, a guide for actually investors to become more aligned to what the value that they can bring to entrepreneurs. It's not just a check. It's their network. It's their, their deep research or their deep knowledge and their resources, right? So this whole book is tactical and also strategic. For investors, they should have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset. They should actually be curious about learning more about the startups that they are evaluating. But on the flip side too, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs loving this book because they're like, oh, I can ask an investor what their investment thesis is. And they actually should know their investment thesis. Even though the book kind of walks an investor through what it means to create an investment thesis, the entrepreneur knows, oh, that's what it means to have an investor thesis. And that's why it's good for me to actually ask that, because maybe I'm completely aligned to that investment thesis and we're going to have richer, better conversations, or I'm not aligned to that investment thesis. And if I get in front of this investor and they say my thesis is completely different than what you are pitching, you're like, you know what? I love the time that we had together. Could you recommend me to an investor who is aligned to what you have just heard me pitch? That is gold, right? To be able to have an investor be like, you know what? I know that you didn't want money from me, but man, I can introduce you to somebody who would be fantastic for your startup. So that mindset of making sure that that alignment between that investor side of saying, this is what I'm looking for, I'm curious, I want to know more about your company, I invest in like $10,000 at the seed stage in technologies that are more SaaS based, and you as an entrepreneur says, oh, I want to have an investor who understands the SaaS space, that understands advising to a startup that's really early. Oh, you invest in seed stage? Oh, well, what kind of companies have you invested in? And that's a great conversation to have. So this piece of connecting the dots between an entrepreneur and an investor and what that mindset is for that investor is super, super important for that entrepreneur to even just ask. So that's more like esoterical strategic for the entrepreneur in the crowd now. And entrepreneurs know that they're evaluating you so usually on the same sort of criteria. And that's part of the book right there. So there's a 5 M's, right? So you have management. So that's a team. You have money. How much are you trying to raise? What is your financials? So there's business model, the M. So what is it? B2B, B2C, momentum, right? What is that? That's more like traction. What have you been able to accomplish? What are you trying to do in the next year? And the last one is market, right? So making sure that your market is right for you. You can be a niche market. That's okay, right? But that investor needs to know, is it niche? Is it a huge market? What market are you going to go after first? What's your beachhead market? Beachhead is usually that first market that you go into. And then what's that larger market that you're going to go into afterwards? So those are the 5 M's. Even if that investor is saying, oh, I have a criteria that's different than that, typically they're looking at those investment criteria. So in a pitch, or even a pitch of 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, not that you can put everything into 30 seconds, those 5 M's are the things that they're kind of checking off their mind. And then you can have that better conversation next. That is, okay, now we can go from a 30-second to a 5-minute pitch. Let me converse about all of those 5 M's in a longer time frame. And the question and answer become more enriched and more meaningful because you're going after those pieces that they want to understand better.
Wow. This is absolutely wonderful. You know, a lot of times we come up with these amazing entrepreneurial ideas and we pitch to the wrong people. We don't even do our research to find out whether things are in alignment with their vision and their goals.
Yeah, so it's hard. And it's hard for entrepreneurs to say, "Oh, I need the aligned investor or the mindful investor that isn't completely in my sphere," because you're scared you're going to miss out, right, on a possible investor. Don't feel that way. If you have that alignment, it's going to go so much further than just one check.
Wow. Okay, so now let's talk about all the obstacles that come in the way that make you want to just give up. I know that you have 8 startup investing abundance mantras to help weather the uncertainty. Do you know them offhand? Can you share?
I don't know them offhand because I'm like, oh wow, those are ones that I know I wrote out on Canva.
Because it's difficult to stay positive when you are getting so many no's. The one thing that I am finding at the age of 56 with my first tech startup is I have so many strikes against me. I'm in Australia, I'm Black, I'm female, I'm 56, so the whole ageism thing is coming in. I'm breaking into the technology field and I haven't been in tech for a number of years. It's very, very frustrating. How can I overcome where I am at now?
Oh, that's like the $1 million question, right? It's so hard. I think it's an internal battle and an external battle, right? So the internal battle is I have done everything that I can to be able to be as positive as prepared and as outwardly focused, like check the box type of startup and founder, right? That's one thing that you're like, okay, I've done all things, but you have to, the dipole is that you have to be authentic, but you have to fit the mold, but you have to be, authentic, but you have to do something else, right? So those are the kinds of things that are really, really hard. And then the external piece is you've built a platform and a network that is huge, right? And there's going to be people that can really support you and lean into that. Because a lot of entrepreneurs don't know that they have somebody right next door to them, like quintessentially next door to them, that can help them with resources or, a positive shoulder to lean on or something like that. So I think that those two forces of you saying, okay, have I done everything? Like you said, have I really looked at all of the investors and seen which ones are specifically aligned to my venture? That's one thing that would be really great to go through. And externally, sometimes we just forget there's somebody right next door that can help us.
That's very true. So first, look in your internal network. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started reaching out to my community to see if they would like to invest in the company.
Of course, 100%, because they know you. I can tell you too. So the other thing is trust is the most valuable currency in the investment world, right? Because it's about tremendous reciprocity between you and us with sincerity and transparency. That's trust. You have built that in your network. You have built it, one day at a time, one entrepreneur at a time, one woman at a time. So they trust you. So when you ask them, hey, I have this company, I would love to get investment. Are you ready to come in? They're going to say yes, or at least going to say, let me talk to you. That's that first step in. We're talking about baby steps all the time.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh gosh, this is so inspiring. Okay, so now let me take you into the future.
Okay.
You are now 90 years old. It's a thought experiment, and you're sitting on your porch in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats. If I could teleport you right now to go and meet the 90-year-old you, what would you say to this wise woman who's led you to that point?
That's a hard one because my mother is actually 94. So I get to talk to her all the time. I think that I would probably tell her, have I been gentle enough to you? Because I think that for me, even my mother even tells me all the time that I'm very hard on myself. And so at this time, I feel like I have to be, right? It feels like that because you're in the right race. I'm 50. I have hopefully another 40 years of work to do, and I have work to do, right? When you're working in advocacy, you feel like the work is never done. We want to get to 50% of angel investors being women, and the VC world has to look different, right? So I hope that I can tell that 90-year-old woman, did I do the good work? Right? It is hard, good work. And I would probably tell her to rest a little bit and enjoy. I do enjoy my family very much. And that's something that is very, very important to me. So that is something that I would love to sit down with her and say, have we done it well? Have we lived well? Because I think I probably would have lived well. And the having a sense of family, having a sense of faith, and having a sense of community in the advocacy work that we're doing consistently every single day. So I'm a little bit of a simple person in the sense of, have we done the good work? And I would probably say yes. At even now, I know at 90, I'm probably going to say yes. But I would love to know the data. I would have been like, okay, girl, do you have the data? Do you know how much you've been able to do? I was like, oh, okay. So I would be like, okay, at 90, I would probably tell myself, calm down a little bit more, because I'm telling my 20-year-old self, calm down, right? You're going to get there.
Oh, I love it. The other reason why I love to ask that question is that a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already here. She's already in you. She's already guiding you, and you need to trust her. Mm-hmm. Trust your intuition. When you said earlier that you have that spark, that spark, that thing that makes you want to change the world, that makes you want to create a business, is very unique just to you. So hold on to that. Don't let it go, and trust it. This has been such a pleasure talking to you today. What are your parting thoughts for our community?
I think for the community that's out there, believe in yourself. We've heard about sparks, so ignite that. Set it ablaze. It doesn't matter where it goes, no matter if it goes like crazy and does all the things that you don't want it to. That's a beautiful thing, right? And lock elbows with other women, because that's what's going to be the multiplier, right, of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it's when we start collaborating and working together that we are a force unto itself. And I love the vision of 50% VC funding coming from women. I think it's long overdue.
It is. And I was challenged by my TEDx speaking coach. You will never do it in your lifetime. Do you realize that? And I said, watch me.
Oh, I like that.
But it was a good challenge. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't do it. So it's always a challenge of like, I think we're going to get there, or even in my daughter's lifetime, but we're going to go and continue doing it one woman at a time.
One woman at a time. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming online today and sharing your nuggets of wisdom with us. I would love to extend an invitation for you to be one of our keynote speakers for the first Diversity Connector conference in 2024. Oh. So stay online so I can give you information about that. But thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. You've been asking me to bring you inspiration, women who are in the field, who are in the trenches, doing the work, leaving this planet a better place than we found it. And Silvia, you are such an amazing example of what I'm trying to create, and an inspiration that it's already happening and we just have to find each other.
Well, you're an inspiration to me, and I've just been so honored to be part of a little sliver of your great community.
Thank you. So I've got your website scrolling at the bottom of my screen. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, go onto sheinvest.com. Reach out. There's programs, there's knowledge that will guide you to get the investment for your business and make you a leader in your industry. Tune in again tomorrow, everybody, when I speak to yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thank you, Silvia. And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mah, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open,